Not the sequel you were promised. A spy story sequel by StoryMan-Jack. So, how did the, Blair paused a moment searching for the correct word. Bad guys? The lovely CIA agent Candi King supplied as she paced the aisle between the seats on the jet. This time it was kindly furnished by the Queen of England, no less. I prefer to call them the opposition. It muddies the water too much. Good, bad, right, wrong, our side, theirs. Just the opposition. But I get your sentiment. How did they get the key away from you? He finished as he sipped on his scotch and leaned back in his seat, relaxed. My own assistant stunned me at the airport. I told you, as we were getting off the plane, she said as she turned to start another lap of her anxious pacing. Looking up, he said, "You may as well get comfortable, my dear. It is a long flight." She stopped and glared at him. The man was just infuriating. Through this whole thing, explosions, chases, gunfire, he sat relaxed, in a tuxedo that looked as if it had just come out of the cleaners and not a hair out of place. Finally, she just gave up and dropped into her seat. As she settled into the very comfortable and luxurious padding, Blair pushed a drink into her hand. It looked just like his, a scotch. Hell no, she thought. We aren't going to be doing that again. Once is enough. All you get, Mr. Blair, she thought. Then she accidentally spilled, or dumped, her drink into the carpet floor. Oops, she said with barely a straight face. Blair rolled his eyes. You have misunderstood me, Agent King. I never expected to see you again. He smiled, and damned if it didn't almost liquefy her legs. Good thing she'd curled them up under herself. One time is probably as far as it should go. She felt the blood run out of her face. What did he just say? She thought. How dare he? Just what did he think that Candi King was? A one-night stand, love him and leave him type of gal? She looked him in the eye, feeling her blood come rushing back to her face in indignation. I mean, he continued in an irrationally reasonable tone. I'm sure you would agree that any kind of relationship between us more than what it was would just be a setup for failure, given our professions and swaying allegiances. He looked up from his drink, purposefully misreading her flush. No need to blush. It is what it is. I am going to kill him before we even reach cruising altitude, she growled in her own mind. Her response to Blair, however, was just to smile and turn away, pretending to look out the window. She was completely unaware when sleep took her, her head nodding, and she drifted off to sleep. Blair smiled as he watched her, waited for her rhythmic but light snoring. He had pissed her off on purpose, knowing exactly what type she was. He needed her to stop focusing on their immediate problems, learn to relax. He had to do that between all the action. If you didn't, you'd have a bloody aneurysm in like a day. He sipped his drink again, noted the glass was empty except for the large ball of ice at its bottom. Sighing, he reached over, pulled the bottle of perfectly blended 30-year-old scotch and poured himself another glassful. If for no other reason, he would have to quit the job soon enough just to save his liver. Hell, it was a wonder that one of these weirdo, crazy, megalomaniacal types hadn't accidentally killed him yet. The Lord knows they couldn't have done it on purpose. He sipped again, taking the once burning liquid in. He smiled. It was always that third drink that got him. Once it no longer burned and just felt like a warm syrup sliding down his throat. That was when he knew. That was the last one. It was time to stop. And though the glass was still plenty full, he left it on the little tray next to his seat and retired to the large apartment in the back of the luxury jet, doing something he rarely done, for he was exhausted. He fell into a light sleep atop the bedding, fully clothed in his best tuxedo. Not long after, Candi jerked awake and looked around. The only thing that was different, Blair had obviously changed and was awake. He wore slacks, a white button-down shirt, and a sport coat. His whiskey was replaced by orange juice. Several newspapers sat in the seat next to him. She caught one title, Wall Street Journal, lying atop another, the Washington Post. Then he saw he had woken her. Then she saw what had woken her. The bastard was actually smoking a pipe on the airplane. Clouds of noxious vapor drifting up from his mouth as he casually puffed on his pipe and read through the news. "Don't you know that's illegal?" she told him with a glare. "What? Reading the New York Times?" Blair said, shaking the newspaper at her that was still in his hand as he puffed on the pipe. "I'm sure it will be soon, the way they're talking. You know we think all you Yanks are going crazy, right?" She glared at him. "I'll have you know, Mr. Blair, I'm a Texan, not a Yankee. Yankees are something totally different." He smirked, having known he would touch a nerve. Texans were always touchy. "Yeah, I heard that about Texans. And on top of that, you're Irish. In fact, looking at your features, you must be the most Irish person I've ever met. Both Irish and Texan. In the same body? How do you even function?" Then her sleep-addled brain understood what he was doing. "You know what? Fuck you, Blair. It's not nice to fuck with people you just met, and doubly so when you do it before morning coffee. Geez, you want to start a fire or something? Put that damn thing out." He chuckled as he tapped out the pipe, obviously having only lit it to wake her up and put her in a mood. "Did you even sleep, or are you just waiting around to make fun of me?" she asked, finally uncurling herself out of her seat. "I have a question," he asked. "Okay." "You said your assistant betrayed you?" She stopped, having started on her way to the back to see if she could clean up somehow and get a change of clothes. "Yes, I said that." He shrugged. "Presumably that man was assigned to you the last moment. Your end of the assignments shouldn't have been any more planned out than my own. So that means there are others in your agency that may be with our opposition. I am, however, not saying that my own service may not be as forthcoming or innocent as I believe they should be. So, we have a trust problem," Candi said reluctantly. "Great, first assignment, already the worst possible thing." He just watched her, his paper hiding the lower part of his face, but not his eyes, the eyes of a hunter. She almost fell for it that time. "So you didn't sleep?" she asked, to give herself something else to focus on. To her surprise, the rooms that she found were not what she had expected at all. She found no little bathroom, but a full apartment suite. Granted, cut down to size, but certainly large enough for two people to relax in luxury. The bedroom and bed may have only been slightly larger than a full-size bed, but the bathroom was sizable, and she was able to take her time and have a very healing and mentally balancing bath. There were even bath salts. When she emerged, a large Western omelet, looking to have been plied with double meat, sat expertly made upon the plate where she had slept much of the flight away. Next to it sat a large glass of orange juice and a slightly smaller glass of milk, and a large steaming cup of what had to be fresh black coffee. Blair sat seemingly oblivious behind yet another newspaper, this one the London Herald. Normally she would have forced a conversation about the suite in the back and how he had access to such a nice plane, but Blair was playing games and Candi knew it. So she decided to play along with him. No man on earth could pay attention to that much news for that long. You might as well have them committed if they actually did such a thing, for they'd be crazy afterwards. The agent realized she was ravenous. Once she was comfortable and content that Blair was just going to push his silent treatment, she cut a mouthful of omelet onto a fork, pulled it halfway to her salivating mouth. Just as the morsel reached her anxious tongue, Blair said with startling suddenness, "Couldn't remember for sure, but didn't you say that you sent our flight plan to your base office?" Now that's just going too far, Candi thought. She'd almost bitten her tongue. And that mouth-watering bite of omelet landed just on the carpet at her feet. Right almost on the same place she had spilled her drink the night before, making her feel like a slob. "I did," she growled at him as she attempted to clean up the mess, bending down with some very fancy cloth napkins. "Stellar," he said, folding the paper and tossing it on the seat next to him where the stack of other papers lay, "because I changed it." She stopped, her second attempt at eating a bite of the omelet. "You just changed it?" she asked with sarcasm, her bite of breakfast on the fork hovering in midair before her incredulous expression. "Forgotten." "Why?" "Well, instead of landing in San Antonio, giving the information over to your office, which obviously cannot be trusted, and being done with it, we're flying directly to that private lab that's in the data near a college in Austin. Seems to be the source of our current infection," he said, as if it were a matter of fact, ignoring the obvious. He said as if it were a matter of fact, ignoring the obvious pun. Her whole body went numb as she dropped the fork. "I can't believe it. God damn you, Blair," she swore, getting up, and she cleaned the second mess as she had the first. "Why would you do that? My mission is only to bring you and the data to my boss. That's it. I wasn't even supposed to know what was in the data. My God, Blair, this isn't even a real mission for me. This was supposed to be a milk run for a new agent." He shrugged. "We simply cannot trust your agency right now, Agent King." In an earnest tone, the first she had heard from the man. She got up from the floor, eyed Blair, put her mess on the plate next to the uneaten omelet, and set it aside, giving him her full attention. "Mr. Blair, there's something I don't think you understand. I don't know how it is with Her Majesty's service, but in America, these things don't play out like a bad B-movie or a horrid television drama from the 70s. He snorted, as if you'd know anything about the 70s. "Exactly, Mr. Blair. I don't know how you've gotten where you have with the reputation that you have, But things don't work the way you seem to think they do. At least not where I'm from. He considered. Times do change, do they not? I reported the incident to my direct supervisor, as I'm supposed to do. He told me that was it. I'm done with it. I am to deliver you and the data to him. He changed the parameters of my mission enough to collect you, get that data, and that's it. No deviations. Do you understand? You may have just cost me my job, my career. Her eyes went wide as she finished, falling back into her seat. Maybe my freedom. Blair chuckled. And it kind of worked, like a medicine, staving off the depression that seemed to try and envelop Candi King. She stood, her fist clenched. You think that it's funny, ruining everything I've worked for? She didn't scream, not really even raising her voice. Not wanting any attention to the crew or stewardesses or stewards. But the contempt in her tone was enough that it showed him what she wanted him to see. He, however, met her eyes. And for the first time, Candi got a glimpse into the real Blair. Those eyes were serious eyes, and they demanded attention. Those eyes would send men to their deaths with a heartlessness that only a machine could equal. These weren't the mischievous and hotly flirtatious eyes that had weakened her needs the first time. This look was all business, and it expected orders to be followed. Miss King, do you think or believe your career is worth more than thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of innocent lives? Imagine a biological of this nature, or chemical, hitting Beijing, or New York City, or LA, or London. Do you think I give a good goddamn about your career, young lady? Of course not. Blair nodded. Those eyes never moved. It was a little spooky. And his voice came back with a harsh whisper. Does that put the change in our itinerary in a better context? She thought about it calmly and without thinking about her mixed feelings on Blair. As far as she knew, only the director, her direct supervisor, knew about the mission. And he had assigned Harris to her, not the agency. What if? She murmured to herself. Exactly, he said in a more cheerful tone, as if a totally different person now sat before her. So, enjoy the next hour or so. We are due to land soon. As he turned to the seat next to him, she noticed, hidden by his body, was a perfectly unspoiled omelet, steam still rising from it. Here, he handed her the second plate. Get this into yourself, young lady. You'll need it. But I made 3. You made them? Of course. A good omelet. That's how you start your day. Turned out they had very little issues getting through customs and out to the lab. It seemed that even in a foreign country, the Queen's jet marked rapid response. The timing had been lucky also. They needed the cover of darkness as Blair took them far out of the way to circle around to approach the complex from behind. And I suppose the real reason you didn't sleep on the plane was that you were looking at blueprints of this place? Candi asked. He shook his head. I've been studying these plans for about 3 months. He paused and then winked, though it could have been a trick of the low light and wind. I already had the data, or most of it. It was given to me through other means than Her Majesty's service. She stopped. Wait, you've had months to prep for your end of the mission? He chuckled. Service didn't know about it at all. I was the one who brought it to their attention. Then why the hell didn't you plan this out better? She demanded. We could have had much better intel. He smirked. Dear Miss King, as you said earlier, this is not a bad movie or a horrible plot line to a bad 70s television show. I have no authority, nor could I use any resources in order to follow up on anything on my own that I were keeping from my version of your agency. The world just doesn't work that way, he said, mocking her own words from earlier. So I did my best to make sure that we had the most viable chance we could to destroy whatever it is they're hiding in that lab. Maybe this is all planned out, he pointed out. That everything that has happened from the moment you received your orders until now has happened because it was according to that plan. Why, think of it. We flushed out an asset in the CIA working for our opposition. We have flushed out another asset who brought the key to me. And now we're about to raid a facility that could be holding something so dangerous that most governments wouldn't even want to touch it. Candi was mystified. That's why Blair had the reputation as one of the best agents in the intelligence world. He simply didn't play by the rules. It wasn't that he broke them. He just refused to play. And now, she asked with forced excitement, and now what do we do? Oh, mentor of mine. He flashed her a sexy British smile. And now, lights came up all around them, temporarily blinding. Hands up, a very authoritarian voice ordered. And now we get taken captive. He sighed, his hands going up. Are you fucking kidding me? I said hands up. Is this part of the vaunted plan you were talking about? She raised her hands as well, sighing, as they were, indeed, taken prisoner. Here ends the sequel to The Asset, titled Not the Sequel You Were Promised. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, tell me why. Make a comment, let me know how I'm doing, and I hope to see you next time. Like and share. Have a great rest of your day.